Call to order the September 17th, 2024 meeting of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit Board of Directors. Could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Just to announce that that pledge was by Erin Bader and Eileen DePaulo's Sequel Adult Programming Participation Group. And I believe we'll hear a little bit more about that later on during our meeting. It looks like they were having a good time at the bowling alley. Okay, Michelle, could I get a roll call for attendance, please?
Yes, Mr. D'Angelo,
Here.
Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Mr. Hollowell,
I'm here.
Mr. Morgan, Ms. Sheehan,
Here.
Ms. Stern,
Here.
Mr. Waldorf, Ms. Winters,
Here.
Mr. Wers,
Here.
Ms. Osecki,
Here.
Ms. Walbeezer,
Here. I am going to have to leave early, however.
Mr. Godikson,
Present.
Ms. Foley. Okay, we have a quorum of 10.
Okay, we have 10 and Ms. Walbuzzer leaving. That won't affect anything. So you can
Need
just
7 for a quorum.
Yes, you can just when you have to leave, you can go ahead and leave. Okay. Okay, we did meet in executive session this evening. We discussed some personnel matter, and also the facilities committee met in executive session to discuss some real estate matters. So we get that out of the way, and we'll move on to item 2, presentations and mini reports. And Dr. Greeny, it's all yours.
Good evening. Welcome back to the start of the 24-25 school year. We're excited that we get to welcome the students into our programs from the early learning centers through the adult services programs. And it's week like 4 of school and exciting things have been happening. So one of the events or one of the programs we want to share with you tonight is about our adult services program. And in board docs under 2A and also in your orange folder, there's a paper copy of the Bucks IU Transition and Adult Programs, a Continuum of Services report. And this evening we have Jen Schmidt, who's our program director, as well as Hillary Fitzmaurice and Lori McCrory, 2 of our supervisors, here to share more information about the adult services programs and the transition services programs.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Greeny. So tonight we are, as Dr. Greeny shared, happy to share an overview of our transition programs and services, along with the continuation into adult programs. At each of your along with your packets, you will have little gifts. We have a bag from Sequel along with a fidget that's in there, some information on each of the programs, and some cookies from Wow. I know it's not the 6-pack, but these are just extra bonus cookies. Oh, do we have the presentation? Okay. So we're going to start by just talking a little bit about transition services and how they connect in the overview to some of the adult programs and continuation after school age. And to talk about transition services, they are a requirement by both federal and state regulations under IDA in Chapter 14. It's a coordinated set of activities for a child with a disability that's designated within their IEP. A mandated component of the IEP to ensure students are equipped with the skills to meet their post-secondary goals. So when we talk about transition services, they would be focused in the areas of education, employment, and independent living. When those goals are developed, we would be looking at it being student-centered and led with input from all of the IEP team members. And then we'll talk a little bit today about some of the transition services that are provided by the Bucks IU in order to help our districts meet that obligation in providing these services to their students. And I'm going to turn it over to Hillary to talk a little bit more about our classrooms and transition services.
So I'm just going to give a brief overview of our classrooms and what each one does and what makes each one different. So first we have College Connections and Decisions, and they are transition programs that provide opportunities for students who are still exploring their interests. They haven't quite figured out what it is that they want to do, so they may want to pursue full-time employment or post-secondary education and or training. Project Search is a collaborative program. It's an international program with over 600 sites worldwide, and we partner with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation as well as a business, and our business happens to be the County of Bucks. So this program is located at the old courthouse in Doylestown. So this program is unique. There's an application process. Students must be in their last year of school, whether that's at 18 or 21. They have to have already decided that they want to work, that they are interested in pursuing competitive employment, and we categorize that as 16 hours or more a week. They also have to have an open case with OVR, and the partnership with OVR is what makes it so unique because after they've completed their second internship, OVR comes in and provides supports that are ongoing after the student accepts their diploma or certificate. This program offers OVR is the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and the next slide we'll get into that. Good question. So the students participate in 1 hour of classroom work, and then they have 5 hours at a internship in one of the county departments. And then next we have WOW, and WOW is located in the Percy Square Shopping Center, and it used to be a former Blockbuster. We did advocate to keep the Blockbuster video slot, but that didn't happen. So we have 2 multiple disability classrooms there, and we have 2 life skills programs. So the fact that we are located directly in the community allows for daily experiences out and about. It allows for people to see us, for us to interact with our neighbors. The students there work on communication, independent skills. They have the opportunities to participate in different volunteer experiences, as well as participating in their classroom businesses, Scantastic and the Famous Bakery and WOW Cookies. I do apologize that it's not half a dozen. They did ask if it should be 6 or 2. And then finally, we have our transition programs that are located at Samuel Everett, and those programs are very similar in nature to the WOW programs. So we also provide district vocational services, and these are, the first one is a supervised work experience. So really what that is we've partnered with local businesses and nonprofits throughout the county, and it allows students who are interested in just kind of like job sampling, trying it out, seeing if they're interested in working, go and spend 2 hours of their day at a different site for 1 rotation, which is half the year, and then they return to their school, and then they can change rotations in January. The second is an independent job placement, which is a really customizable service for the individual who's already really narrowed down what it is that they want. And we go out and we try to support that in finding them employment. Travel training, which you're going to learn about, is one of the biggest barriers for our individuals in finding employment is transportation. It's really hard to get there in order for them to get a job and also maintain a job. So travel training, we work with the individuals in their community. We help them navigate public transportation systems, different ways and unique ways to get to and from work. And then finally is the vocational assessments. We have a variety of assessment tools that we can use to support individuals who are still trying to figure out what it is that they want to do. And then we can give them assessments based off their needs. And then we can take that data and take that information, compile it, and then give it back to the districts and the student and their IEP teams. So the Bucks IU, and I'm very grateful for this, they've really recognized the increasing demand and the need for adult programs. And we understand that it needs to be a fluid transition from our school age services into adulthood. So we have created the seamless transition to allow students to continue receiving the necessary supports as they move toward independent living, employment, and community engagement.
So with the rising number of students requiring services beyond the age of 18 and society's increased inclusivity in the workplace, the Bucks IU proactively developed these programs that extend beyond transition school age supports. And we address the unique challenges faced by students as they transition to adulthood. The Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, you'll hear us call it OVR, and the Office of Developmental Programs, ODP, are agencies that provide funding to adults for services. And you can see some of the examples here of the programs that we are providing. OVR provides pre-employment transition services. There's a lot of acronyms. Pre-ETS, that we call it, is for students age 16 to 21. And again, this is really just exploration, trying to identify employment goals. We have services where they may complete work assessments in the community, job shadowing, paid employment training, and job placement. OVR Pre-ETS, we also have some summer programs. And this year we expanded from 2 programs to 6 programs this year. And again, it was for students 16 and up. And we partnered with local businesses and not-for-profits such as Richland Historical Society, Doylestown Country Club, and Bucks County Parks and Recreation to provide work experiences for students. And our OVR supported employment is for adults. This program began in 2019, and we have served over 200 individuals in the adult program. The Office of Developmental Programs, we are providers for mainly 2 services, the supported employment, and this may be for individuals who need longer term supports. And we also provide community participation supports. We have 2 main groups, full-time group, which is 6 hours a day in the community, 100%, and part-time groups, which could be between 1 and 3 hours a day. That's where you saw our Pledge of Allegiance. We were at Thunderbird Lanes that day. We are now serving 29 individuals in our community participation support groups in both our part-time and full-time. In order to provide supported employment throughout the state of Pennsylvania, we are required to have an ACRE training, and so are all the other agencies in the state providing this service. So we created our own curriculum, and it was approved as a comprehensive, competency-based curriculum. And so now we are able to not only train our own staff, but open it up to other agencies and districts who would like to further their knowledge about supported employment, and they receive a certification. It is the Association of Community Rehab Educators. It's actually nationwide, yep. And so our curriculum is really tailored to the state laws. And so we provide it for the state of Pennsylvania. We are one of 3 providers. So in conclusion, for our presentation, we do have a video we're going to show, but Our programs are providing a comprehensive continuum of services for students who are participating in the IU classes. And we are focused on the seamless transition and empowering students. But what better way to show this than to hear from the students themselves? So we have a video to show, and it is highlighting the programmatic experiences of 3 individuals. The first is Morgan Hampton from Neshaminy School District. And then it is Robert Krusher and Richie Lanning, who are both from Palisades. And they have participated in combinations of our classroom programs as well as OVR summer programs.
Visions prepared you for life after school?
It just prepared me to have like a better outlook on life, because before I came here, I don't really know like that much about like how to get a job, and like how to pay for like my own things per se, and yeah, so
And now you
so
do.
so now I do.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert. I'm 20 years old, and I went to Central Bucks West, and I graduated in 2022.
All right. Can you tell everyone the different programs that you have done with the Bucks County IU?
Well, during the 2 school years, I did College Connections, and over the summer, I did a community work initiative at Doylestown Country Club. And I'm in my 3rd year doing Project Search here at the Bucks County Courthouse.
Good. And do you know what your first internship within Bucks County government will be yet?
Not yet. We're having a reveal party today.
Are you hoping for a specific one?
I hope that I get the Prothonotary.
The Prothonotary, well, that's a really good one. Okay. Can you tell me some of the skills that you've learned and what you've gotten out of all these programs with the IU?
Well, I made connections, had work experience, and I've gotten paid with a pretty cool sum of money, and I got work, and I also learned how to work accurately and how to do customer service.
Excellent. What did you do? All right. Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Rich Lanning. I am 19 years old. I am from Kinnersville, Pennsylvania, from the Upper Bucks School District.
All right. And what programs have you worked with the IU in?
I have worked at the WOW program in Percy for the past year, the Care and Share Thrift Store, the Assistives Technology Department at the Bucks County IU, the My Work Initiative at the Richland Historical Society.
And I got to work with you a little, Rich, this summer at Richland Historical Society. Can you tell some of the things you did at Richland?
Some painting, vacuuming, mostly janitorial work, other than restrooms.
And you helped refurbish the whole historical society.
Yes.
What have you gotten out of these programs that you've worked in all? You've done a lot of IU programs. What have you gotten out of it?
I have gotten paid. That's a big one. I have gained a little independence. I am building skills that I will use in the future. I'm getting ready to work in the future.
And we're going to help you get a job, right?
Yes.
Are you excited about that?
I am excited.
Last question. What did you do with the money that you made this summer at Richland?
I have put it into my bank account for later use.
Nice. Very responsible.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? I know we stopped for a few along the way.
Anyone? Question?
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say to each of you, Jen, Lori, and Hillary, you guys, this program is just getting so much bigger and better. And I was at Silver Lake this summer when we and saw that young man. And one of the things that was really neat is to talk to his parents. And I think the first young lady said it best. you get a lot of satisfaction out of what you do, but when somebody says that they've changed my outlook on life, I don't know what greater compliment that they could give to you guys. So thank you, all three of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving along, Dr. Holler with the programs and services report.
Good evening, everyone. So I have in your folder, you'll find the program and service mini report, and it's also item 2B in the board docs agenda. And this month's topic is comprehensive planning, and who better to talk about comprehensive planning than our comprehensive planning guru, Chad Evans. He's our supervisor of educational planning, and he's here to share the actual mini report that he prepared. He'll have a little presentation to share a little bit about the Bucks IU's comprehensive plan.
Thank you again for the opportunity to share. Again, one of the ways that we support you and the schools that you serve is by providing comprehensive planning supports. Comprehensive planning in Pennsylvania is required every 3 years, and each school district is on a cycle. And so all of you are at different places in your cycle. And comprehensive planning is really kind of two components. There is a compliance component, which is ensuring that we're meeting the expectations of the state and the laws. And then there is the visioning and ensuring that our plans are driving towards our ultimate goals. And we could not have had a better introduction to the Bucks IU comprehensive planning process, because those of you who know me know that I believe that the power of comprehensive planning is in storytelling. And we saw a really wonderful example tonight of 3 of our learners engaging and telling their stories. And I think that's the kind of stuff that brings power to the planning process and the backwards design. So I just have a couple slides I wanted to share with you to update you on where we're at as an organization in our comprehensive planning process. There we go. So one of the things that you have in your minutes are an executive summary that highlights a one-pager. And so what we've done is we've taken the mission and vision that was developed 3 years ago, and we have made those, again, very forward-facing, along with the values of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. And then the second part of this one-pager ultimately are an establishment of 3 priorities, which are very similar to our last comprehensive plan in culture and communications, our internal systems, and then the supports and services that we provide. And I'm going to get into a little bit about the process that we've used to refine those and where we're at. But ultimately, this gives you kind of the broad structure for how our comprehensive plan has started to come together over the past 6 months. As I mentioned, big fan of the idea of storytelling through comprehensive planning, that stories, they remind us that we're not alone in the work that we do. We are here through the support, not just of the people in this room, but all of our teachers, our support staff, our families, and our community organizations. And those are the kinds of stories that we get to tell when we do this work. And then it's also how we make sense of the world, right? So we have this opportunity not just to lean on one another, but to make sense of the things that are changing, and things are constantly changing for us, both as an organization and in our communities. This process is ultimately about helping us to decide what we want to let go of. So what needs to evolve or change, what we're going to hang on to, and then what we're going to reach for. And we transition from the stories that we tell others about the IU right now to the stories that we hope to tell about our organization and our kids and our community. We want to honor our past, so we never forget where we came from. We have a rich tradition and history. We want to make sure that we're holding on to those parts that are worthy of holding on to. We want to acknowledge our present. So who are we right now? How do we celebrate that? But also, how do we adjust and move from that? And then we get to design our future, perhaps a future Bucks IU building there. AI did a wonderful job helping me to design our next building.
Do you have a lead on where that building is, Chad? And is it available?
I don't.
You don't know where that is?
Only so much I can do.
All right, talk to Dr. Hartwig.
Yeah. And so in the development of our comprehensive plan, we really asked 3 big questions. And those questions were about engaging our stakeholders, leveraging cross-divisional collaboration. In an organization like ours, we have these great opportunities to share and grow with one another. and then how we collect that feedback to inform our processes. And in the spring, all of our divisions and throughout the organization engage in these kinds of conversations with many of their stakeholders. Some of the groups that I worked with, we had an opportunity to engage in a Back to the Future protocol. So visioning 10 years from now, what are your hopes and dreams from the organization? And then start to work backwards from that into some tangible action steps and action plans. And so what you have in front of you tonight is the best current representation of an executive summary of the comprehensive plan as it exists right now. We did strip away some of the technical details just to give you a broad overall understanding right now, but you can start to see the structure as well as what we anticipate the outputs to be. Our next steps look like this. So we are going to begin organizing a steering committee. I'm going to reach out to Mr. D'Angelo and request several members of the board to participate in that steering committee. In November and December, there will be at least 2 meetings in which we will review the actual entire comprehensive plan for clarity to ensure that it aligns to the vision of the community itself. There are a series of additional reports that we're also responsible for compliance purposes. So ensuring that our learners are accessing Pennsylvania standards and our assessment requirements, that we have a professional development plan that meets the expectations of the state, that our student services are aligned again to law, and that we have an induction plan that meets the needs of our newest teachers. Again, the steering committee will review the full plan and we'll bring it back to you to the board, hopefully by the end of January for your review, and then a public vote in February before our submission in March. And so we just, again, wanted to take the opportunity tonight to just give you an update on where we're at in the process. Please feel free to review that summary at your leisure and certainly reach out to Dr. Hoffman with questions, and he will certainly, I'm sure, reach out to me if there are questions or from there. So again, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening and give you a quick update on where we're at with our comprehensive planning process. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Chad?
I just wanted to add that we're working with the IU on our comprehensive plan as it's due next year, and we've enjoyed working with you, and you guys do a great job helping us out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Mr.
great
Wilson.
to have an outside perspective when you're doing these things.
Anyone else? We good? Chad, as always, thank you.
Mr. D'Angelo, specific to Chad's request that board members be a part of the steering committee, would you like me to send an email to the board asking for volunteers, and then I can let you know who they are?
Absolutely.
All right,
And,
I'll
you
do
know,
that. Chad, will you remind me? We'll do that together whenever you want me to. All right, thank you.
Hey, Allison, cooperative purchasing.
Yep. So I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Robert Whartonby, who's going to share with you an update on our cooperative purchasing.
Are you smiling that big because she called you Dr. Whartonby?
I'm still very humbled by it.
There we go. Congratulations.
So in your packet tonight, as well as 2C in the agenda, you'll see kind of what the business office does in respect to bids that we hold and prepare for each one of your school districts. So Allison asked me to keep this brief, so I'm going to keep it brief. So I'm going to go with my notes. It explains the procurement process that we do at the IU on behalf of the 13 school districts as well as the 3 CTCs. On an annual basis, we conduct a meeting inviting all the 13 school districts and 3 CTCs. We just had that in August 23rd. The idea behind doing cooperative purchasing is it's no different than bulk purchasing, right? You're trying to get the best cost, the best value, the best terms for your purchases. And we do that by leveraging each one of the school districts and having them participate. One of the big ones that I can think of is the fuel bid, where there are 9 school districts and 1 CTC that participate in it. And right now, you go to the pump, you're paying $3 and something per gallon. We can get it for $2 and something per gallon. And it's done because there's over 1 million gallons invested in the purchases. The other things, that's obviously economies of scale. We also have the benefit of reaching out to qualified and quality suppliers. Over the last few years, we've seen more and more people interested in our bids. So that's been good. We've also seen more offerings in our bids. For instance, the nursing bid last year probably had about 600 items. There was about 883 items this year. And that's in part for us learning the industry, but more importantly, when your nurses give me a call and say, hey, Robert, please add this to the list. So that list keeps on growing as well. Likewise, with tires, we do a lot of purchasing for bus tires and vehicle tires. I know that Centennial partakes in it. And you wouldn't believe that year over year that there's a lot of variation in tires. There are a lot of variation in tires. Namely, tires that are on propane buses are not the same tires that are on diesel buses. Saving of time. By me writing the RFP, soliciting it, and returning proposals, and then evaluating the proposals, and obviously coming before you to get the proposals approved and get the vendors approved. That is 13 school districts that aren't doing the same redundant process, going out to the same vendors. It's controlled environment, basically. So you could read what's in your packet. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I do want to capture a few things that I think are pretty important. So we do a catalog discount bid, which is basically just get a whole bunch of vendors to provide us what their discount's going to be on their products. And then they apply it towards the 13th school district. I already mentioned the nurse and trainer supply bid. I mentioned the bus tire bid. We do a bulk paper purchasing bid, which a lot of the school districts do participate in. Believe it or not, mulch. Mulch is a big one, especially when we have the mulch blowing in, which means there is a truck that literally blows the mulch in. So your facilities personnel are not putting it in a wheelbarrow and then hogging it to the playground and dumping it and spreading it. You actually have a machine that's going to go over there and do it. And I know a few of my former colleagues did appreciate that. We have a custodial supply bid. Like the nursing bid, there's about 700 items on that. And then we also have a propane bid that a couple of the school districts participate in, actually 6 school districts, meaning they have propane vehicles. Again, Centennial being one of them, Pennsbury being another. Upper Bucks Tech High School purchases propane for their shop classes. So it's a very good program. I encourage each of the school districts to continue to participate in it. Ask their facilities department, their operations department, their business office to continue supporting us. And I look forward to supporting them in the future. Thank you.
I do have a question, Mr. Wartenbeam,
Yes,
because,
Mr. Godison.
it's a great list here, but the one thing that I seem to be missing is a co-op, to buy buses and vans.
I'm glad that you brought that up. You and I had a brief discussion about that last month, and the purchasing of vehicles is often difficult because each school district has their, I would say, their uniqueness about it. And what I mean by uniqueness, each mechanic likes a different type of vehicle potentially, right? So it's really hard to say you're all going to get a Wolfington bus with a Ford motor or a Mercedes motor in it. So that becomes difficult. The other challenge is not so much, that Karen wants a certain bus, but the challenge now becomes purchasing bulk vehicles. We've had, myself and my colleague Peter had difficult time finding vans, right? We were able to find some. We actually purchased an electric vehicle. I know when I was in Centennial, and currently I believe, if I'm not remiss, you were looking at vans, and that was hard to get. We solicited a proposal, I believe, twice to find Peter some vans because they just weren't out there. And then you find out if one of the vendors says, yes, we have the van, we're going to be able to produce it. They contact Ford. Ford cannot guarantee that a van's going to be built for you, or they're discontinued. It's been a really topsy-turvy market in terms of commercial vehicles the last couple of years, post-COVID.
So what I'm hearing you say is we'll explore it with the districts.
Excuse me?
We'll explore it with the districts.
and we'll explore it with the districts. But I know some of the caveat and difficulties with the system. Thank you. Good question. Any
And
other
a
questions?
question? Can you describe the process of approving somebody, a vendor or someone for this list? How does that happen?
So what we do, we basically put out a RFP or a bid that has specific requirements on it, legal requirements, be it from, oh my God, I just forgot the word. Non-collusion to following our insurance guidelines, to following our guidelines in terms of not discriminating against anybody and potentially not discriminating against anybody. And then other terms. It's no different than what your school district might put out in an RFP, where we have specified requirements and general requirements. So it's, for lack of better words, it is a contractual document. When we look at vendors, I'll be quite honest with you, they've been the same ones year over year over year. So we know them. We have a good relationship with them. They continually submit proposals because they still want to do business with us. They have a great pool of 13 school districts and 3 CTCs, and obviously us purchasing from them. So in terms of quality vendors, we do have very good quality vendors. Do we on occasion have vendors that aren't quality? I wouldn't say that they're not quality, but they have difficulty fulfilling obligations for us, and we move on from them, right? Because we do have a host of vendors that we can go to.
Anything else? All right, doctor. Thank you so much. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Moving on to Dr. Hoffman and your executive director's report.
I'll be brief in my report. As always, there are things in your orange folder as board members that are in hard copy that are also available to members of the public in board docs electronically. Notably, board members often ask me, you often hear me say this, but it bears repeating. It's worth repeating that when you go to your local district boards and you often have the IU report, sometimes folks ask, hey, Mark, what can I say at my meeting this month? I often refer people back to these folders because there's lots of good stuff in here that you can use as your cheat sheet, if you will, when you're providing your report back home during your IU update. So of course you see the IU transition report that you heard earlier. Of course, there's the comprehensive planning documents that Chad provided and the mini report that Robert just provided. You also have your awesome news, which of course is also available electronically as a PDF for any member of the public. And I think if you just sort of spend a little bit of time looking at this document or perusing the PDF, you'll just be amazed. Every month, I'm amazed at how much happens in 30 days. That's like one of the most amazing things about working in this organization is there's no shortage of good things happening every day to support students and adults and teachers and staff all across the county. And so as you look at this, you go, oh my gosh, there's like 8-9 pages. This is just what we put here. And this is just, the stuff that we put in here for you for the last 30 days. We could fill thousands of pages. If you notice, the first couple of pages talk about back to school. There was no shortage of great things happening as we prepared over the summer. And then, of course, as we welcomed one another and the students and the adults that we're proud to serve back to school in August and in September. And you'll see lots of interesting articles and short blurbs that tell you about what we're doing. Everything from our youngest learners, 0 to 3, 3 to 5, school age, adults. No shortage of great things happening. Then, of course, you'll also see some great things that happened over the summer with Head Start. You'll see some of the grants that we've earned, $200,000 to support the Fab Lab, money that we're using to support students experiencing homelessness in foster care. There's the press release about the ACRE training that Lori and Hillary and Jen just spoke about. Some great things with new teacher induction, an amazing crop of first and second year teachers with the intermediate unit. Some of the great things happening in Vision, some of the great things happening with our professional development, as well as our staff being recognized at state and national conferences. Workshops that are directly in response to your district's requests for things like AI, artificial intelligence, and how it fits in to curriculum and administration. And then, of course, the litany or the long list of Monday moments that we've issued since the last time we met, highlighting our retirees, team building, and training. If you're not following us on social media, I encourage you to do so. You can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. And every day we're populating something on that. We just ask that you take a look. It gives you something that you could share in your own networks, as well as something that you could share with your local boards. There's no shortage, again, of amazing things happening here. Also, many of you have asked for hard copies of the press releases that we issue that I've shared with you. You'll see copies of those press releases that are a little bit more in the weeds, if you will, in a good way, right? You have the paragraph summaries here in this, but if you want more information, these 1, 2, 3-page press releases have all the information about things like preparing for the school year, receiving the ACRE training, providing essentials to students in a multi-county region experiencing homelessness and foster care, as well as many other things. Also in your packets, Nicole, you want to come up to the microphone? There is an amazing celebration. Ms. Sheehan and I have the opportunity, along with Allison and several other members, to sit on the Bucks County Intermediate Unit's Arts Trust Board. Ms. Sheehan's appointed to that by this board, and you notice the amazing paintings that we have in this building, and many of you have them in your schools as well. It's already the 75th year since administrators got together and decided to take paintings from museums and actually put them in classrooms. And so we want to celebrate that. Nicole, do you want to talk about that? And the invitation looks like this. And you've also received it via email.
Thanks. So there's a copy of this. I'm so thrilled to personally invite you to our 75th anniversary of the Bucks IU Art Collection. It is on October 15th, which is before the board meeting, strategically planned. And we are going to have docents here from the Michener to actually walk through the galleries. So as you come into the intermediate unit and you walk into the atrium, we have many, many famous artists there. So we will have docents to actually walk through the boardroom gallery, the student art gallery, and we are actually bringing brand new, they're actually watercolors that have never been seen. They've just been framed, and they're going to be downstairs for you to also view. There will be family members from Ben Soloway, as well as Roy Noose and Mr. Baum's great-grandchildren will be here and also speaking. And that program piece will start at 5:30 and go to 6. So we'll have wonderful hors d'oeuvres, and we really hope that you're able to come a little bit early that night and celebrate the amazing art collection.
Thank you, Nicole. Ms. Sheehan, would you like to add anything?
No, just that I'm super excited to see all of you at the reception. And thank you for making it such a special celebration for all the students involved.
Yeah, just a little sneak peek of why it's the 75th anniversary. Some of these paintings are obviously older than 75 years. Some of them have been acquired since. It was a collection of the artists at the time who were in Bucks County as sort of an artist colony in different parts of the county, Upper Bucks County, the New Hope, Solebury area, as well as other parts of the county. The gentleman that was the county superintendent at the time, this is before there was an intermediate unit. So the intermediate unit in its pre-IU phase was the office of the county superintendent. The executive director prior to becoming the intermediate unit was the county superintendent. His name was Charles Bain, and he was actually friends or associates with a lot of these artists. And many of them shared a passion for making sure that students saw the real thing as opposed to prints. And so they worked together to take the paintings essentially off the walls of museums and put them in to the schools, which is still happening 75 years later. So it's quite amazing. Nicole, thank you. Michelle, can I turn it over to you, please, to talk about what else is in their packet? This ballot.
Yes, so we will be submitting tomorrow for PSBA has their elections for president-elect, vice president, the Eastern Zone representative and insurance trusts. So we've collected the ballots from the members that are present, and then I will be doing those votes tomorrow with PSBA.
Okay,
those
so
open
you already have everything from everyone?
Have everybody
Oh, beautiful.
on
Thank-
top of it.
Look at that. You're so efficient. I didn't know you did it. Thank you.
There it is. All
You're the
good.
best.
Thank you.
Mr. D'Angelo, that concludes, we talked about that last month. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. I think that concludes
Okay.
my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hoffman. So let's move on to our public participation. Karen, do we have anyone signed in for public participation? We do not, so we will move on. And we will move on to our consent agenda items, and we're looking at agenda items 5A through 9H. So if anyone is looking at those, or you see something that you have a question or anything, would you anything you'd like to pull? If not, I'll take that as a no. So could I get a motion to approve consent items 5A through 9H? Need a motion?
So moved.
Goodson,
Second.
second machine. Any questions or concerns?
And let's pause to make sure when we vote that we hear the folks online.
Yes. Any questions or concerns? Anyone on the phone? Could I get well, I guess we'll do a consent, right? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone on the phone?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that's it. Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, so now moving on to 9A, we're gonna do 10. Rebecca? Just back from vacation? Hopefully she has good news from Harrisburg.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be back from vacation. So it's great to see you all tonight. So you have my legislative report in your packet. And I don't have a lot to talk about because actually, as you know, the House and Senate have been out, they've been in recess since early July. The Senate reconvened yesterday on Monday. They have 12 voting days on their calendar through the end of the year. The House will reconvene next Monday. They only have 9 voting days on their calendar before the end of the year. The election is approaching on November 5th. We have 204 House seats up and 1/2 of the 50 Senate seats up for reelection. As a result, there is very little appetite to take up anything controversial before voters go to the polls in November. So I did give you at the bottom of page 1, the Senate session schedule and the House session schedule. Over on page 2, I kind of compiled everything that's being written and talked about by all of our various lobbyists and news reports, and kind of gave you a heads up on what the fall to-do list actually is for the Pennsylvania General Assembly. There are some key things that they have to get done. One of the things that the governor really wanted to get done this year, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen, is passage of legislation to increase the minimum wage. And it appears that that is a controversial topic, and the House and Senate likely will not take that up before the end of the session. The other item that the Democrats in the House really wanted action on was the relief for child sexual abuse survivors, giving them a longer statute of limitations period to bring those actions. That was really controversial at the beginning of the year, back in January, you may recall. But again, there does not appear to be any willingness to take up these controversial topics. However, according to an article in Spotlight PA, there are 3 issues that more than likely the General Assembly will have to deal with this fall. The first one is to provide funding to our transportation agencies, particularly SEPTA and Rural Medical Transit Services. And there seems to be a bipartisan agreement to provide that funding by taxing skills games. Now, I didn't know what skill games were, so I had to look it up. And so if any of you don't know what it is, I'll just be glad to tell you. They are games that look like the slot machines that you see in the casinos, but unlike games in the casinos, they do not rely on chance. You have to have a certain level of skill. So they may be trivia games or other skill-related games. Mainly you find them in Pennsylvania in restaurants, taverns, convenience stores, and other establishments. Unlike games that are in casinos, these games are not taxed. So this is a revenue source. And it appears that there is bipartisan interest in taxing these skill games in order to provide this funding for SEPTA and some of these rural medical transit services. These transportation agencies received a lot of funding during the pandemic. That funding has now gone away. They're in the hole. The legislature needs to help them out some way. By taxing these skill games, it's estimated that that will bring in $150 million in revenue. So more than likely, there will be some sort of effort to do that before the end of the legislative session. Second item that we know they need to take up is the reauthorization of utilities regulations. That's under Chapter 14. They call it Chapter 14. This is a law that expires every 10 years, and it expires at the end of 2024. What this law does is it regulates how utilities treat customers who are not able to pay their bills, particularly during the cold winter months. And so there does seem to be bipartisan support to keep Chapter 14 in place, to reauthorize it, to make sure individuals who are low income or individuals who have cutoff notices for gas or electric during cold winter months are able to keep those utilities on. And then the final item that there appears to be some willingness to take up is hospital staffing and hospital transparency. Now, since the start of the legislative session last year, the House passed almost a half dozen bills related to hospital regulations, capping the number of patients that each hospital nurse may attend to, giving the state attorney general more power to block hospital mergers, and even mandate that hospitals publicly release their prices for all procedures and services. So even though all of these bills passed the House, the Senate hasn't done anything with them. And there's really been a strong push, particularly from unions in the state, to, at a minimum, approve a few of these measures, especially the language that would cap the number of patients under a hospital nurse's care. So the governor has advised if the Senate would approve one or more of these measures, he would sign them. So those are three items that more than likely you're going to hear about in the coming weeks. One big thing, there is no willingness to do anything with education. Why is that? The legislators feel like they took care of education as a part of the budget with the omnibus education bill. They feel like that the unprecedented level of funding that was given to education in July, that they dealt with education and now they have to deal with some of these other issues before they go home, right? So I'm now in the middle of page 3, and these are just some miscellaneous things I wanted to give you an update on. If you recall, during the passage of the budget, the House and Senate made available $3 million in grant funding to help schools increase student access to feminine hygiene and menstrual products. The funding is a part of the 24-25 budget. It allows schools to purchase menstrual product dispensers as a one-time purchase, and also to procure menstrual products to make available to students at no cost, for both in the school setting and to take home. So this grant is now available. Eligible entities are school districts, charter schools, regional charter schools, intermediate units, and career technical schools. Funding allocations are based upon the number of students enrolled in a school entity and are based on the rate of $1.75 per student. Schools may use that funding for purchases made between July 1, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. I printed for you the table of what the allocations are for our Bucks County school districts, so you will understand how much money will be coming into your district specifically for the purchase of these products. Unlike other grants, this grant is non-competitive and it's a non-solicitation grant, which means you don't have to apply for it. You are automatically going to get this money. However, even though you're automatically going to get this money, there are some data metrics and findings and usage reporting that you will have to do as a district on how you're using this money. The other thing about this grant is, and you should be getting this, your district should all be getting this grant by sometime in October. But if you don't want this, for whatever reason, if your district declines it, you need to notify the Department of Health no later than September 23rd. So that's all I have for the state, because not a lot's been happening on the state. So I thought I'd move on to the federal government, and we could talk a little bit about the federal budget.
I just have
Mr.
one
D'Angelo?
question about
Yes.
that last topic. You have a data here for enrollment for school districts, right?
Yes.
Is that from the previous year?
I believe it is. Yes,
Okay.
it's what is
Would have
reported.
been 2022, 23, right?
It's what was reported the last
23, 24, yeah.
23, 24, the
Okay.
last PIMS reporting, which is what the state routinely uses for data for allocations, student data allocations.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Anything else on the state before we move on? Okay, if not, great fun at the federal level as well. So Congress returned to Washington on Monday, September 9th. And if you recall, the federal budget will expire on September 30th. And so this happens every year, right? Around this time, we're talking about the fact that the government's going to shut down due to lack of federal funding. So on Monday, September 9th, the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, he floated a stopgap continuing resolution. It's called a CR. It would keep the government funded at present levels for another 6 months through March 28th, 2025. Now, there is bipartisan support. No one wants the government to shut down, Democrats nor Republicans. However, this particular CR contained unrelated language that would require voters to show proof of citizenship before registering to vote in federal elections. This language was considered to be a non-starter for most Democrats and a few Republicans. They indicated that the proposal was not necessary because it already is federal law that only U.S. citizens may vote in federal elections. So last week, this proposal was floated. It failed. The speaker could not get enough votes to even bring it forward for an official vote. So he has withdrawn it. And now we don't know what's going to happen. That proposal went nowhere. It's unclear what they're going to take up now. I do know that the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, has offered to work with Speaker Johnson on a bipartisan compromise to extend funding through the end of December, which would then be when a lame duck Congress could come back after the elections to hopefully get longer term funding in place. Speaker Jeffries also indicated that he'd be willing to extend the continuing resolution past December, maybe even to March, as the speaker wanted, as long as it was a clean bill. And what the minority leader suggested is he would deliver the Democrats and Speaker Johnson would only need to deliver a minimal number of Republicans to get that through. So again, stay tuned. It's unclear what's going to happen. However, there is bipartisan support to not have the government shut down on September 30th. And I think there's a lot of optimism that they will work something out. Finally, on the federal level, last month we talked about Title IX, and I gave you a little bit of background on where we are with Title IX, and particularly the final Title IX rule that was promulgated by the Biden administration. And I wanted to give you an update on that. So as you may recall, 26 states are currently enjoined from enforcing the new rules. I listed those states on page 5, about halfway down. Pennsylvania is not one of those states. But if you also recall, last month we talked about a federal district court decision in Kansas, which issued an injunction that applies to any schools in the other 24 states that is attended by students or members of 3 specific groups. And those groups that brought this challenge is Moms for Liberty, Young America's Foundation, and Female Athletes United. So these lists are not locked in Kansas. So the groups are permitted to continue to go and increase their membership, and then the court is updating those lists. The only thing that is required is for there to be one member in the school. So if the parent of one child can prove that they're a member of one of these three groups, that particular school can be added to the list and then enjoined from enforcing the Biden administration Title IX rule. So this original list was issued on July 15th. It did not include any public schools in Bucks County. The list was updated again on July 6th and July 26th, and at that time it included 5 schools from 2 school districts, Centennial and Penridge. The list was updated again by the judge on July 31st and again on August 28th. It now includes the schools listed on page 6 from 9 Bucks County school districts. So I listed those schools for you over on page 6 and part of page 7, just so you're aware of what those schools are. So the question is, what does that mean? And you may recall last month I advised you that the Biden administration petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court and requested that the court curb these injunctions and basically allow the final rule to stand while the federal courts of appeals litigate this and hear the merits of the case. The Supreme Court denied that. And the court specifically said that it expects that the federal courts of appeals will render their decisions with appropriate dispatch. So legal scholars are interpreting that sentence from the Supreme Court decision as a signal from the U.S. Supreme Court to the lower courts to move those appeals quickly. And then it also suggests that the U.S. Supreme Court is inclined to take up the merits of the regulation sooner rather than later. So, but again, we're talking about the courts. They move really, really slowly. So this is not something that's going to be decided quickly. And then also as a reminder, in response to these federal court challenges, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, the PHRC, posted on its website a reminder that students in Pennsylvania are protected from discrimination on the basis of sex by the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, not necessarily by Title IX. The Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General also issued a statement on its website regarding the Biden Title IX rule, stating that the office opposes challenges to the regulations and that the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act continues to offer protections to Pennsylvania students. So that's it. Any questions?
Rebecca, can you clarify? So just so that I can hear what I believe to be the case. So regardless of the Title IX changes that the president wished to implement and the fact that they are now under legal scrutiny, in Pennsylvania, the current state laws essentially provide the same standards that the Biden administration wishes to implement federally. Is that a fair statement?
That is fair in a very broad general way. In terms of the definitions under the Biden final Title IX rule, yes. Some of the procedural elements that you find in that final rule are not part of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act.
But I think the big sticking point
in general,
I think
yes.
the big sticking point is the definition.
That's
and I
correct.
believe that, again, the state of Pennsylvania has already weighed in, and regardless of what Title IX may end up being, does not the state legislation trump in this particular case?
So the state legislation provides very similar protections. So what the Office of Attorney General has said is if you're in a school in Pennsylvania that is enjoined from enforcing Title IX because of the Kansas court decision, you are protected by state law. So you have those protections at the state level. You don't have to go to the federal level.
But my question is more basic. Assume for a moment Title IX does not change. The courts strike down the Biden administration's desire to change the definition. Does not the Pennsylvania legislation already contain that?
Based upon the definitions, yes.
So therefore, it's in this particular state, this whole Title IX issue is essentially meaningless.
Well, I'm going to tell you to check with your solicitor. In general, based on the definitions, yes, but procedurally, there are still protections that Title IX offers that you don't get under the PHRA. Okay.
You got an example?
Timelines. So timelines would be an example. Another example may be responding to the complainant directly with the finding.
Rebecca, we might have discussed this before, but I'm still kind of confused on how the federal court ruling is allowing school districts to kind of opt out of this by school, like by building. In other words, why wouldn't it be, either the school district is in or out, right? What they're doing is they're allowed. So in some of the districts like Central Bucks, they have 6 schools listed, but that means the other 6 schools are subject to. Is that what that's basically saying?
If you go by the federal district court case in Kansas, the answer is yes. And when you say you're confused, your solicitor is confused as well. How do you enforce this? That's why I believe that's why we are looking for better guidance from the courts on this, and it's just going to take some time. I also believe that's why the Office of the Attorney General came out and said, hey, look, you don't have to worry about Title IX because students in Pennsylvania still have these protections, to Mr. Jackson's point.
I guess we're not in Kansas anymore.
We're not in Kansas anymore. Hey, one last thing I totally forgot. Over on page 8, I just want to remind you all, our Bucks IU Countywide Negotiations Forum, we will be meeting on Wednesday, October 30th and on Wednesday, January 29th. I gave you those dates just to hold the date. This is for administrators and school board members only who are part of your negotiations team in your district. Doesn't matter what contract, teachers, support staff, classified staff, doesn't matter. But we invite you to a forum twice a year here at the IU just to discuss what's going on in your district at the table. And we all try to learn from each other. Okay. So I gave you those dates so you can hold them. You're welcome to attend. Any administrator from your district and or any of your fellow board members who serve on those negotiating teams with you, you're welcome to attend. So feel free to circulate those dates. And we'll be sending out to your superintendent an RSVP link that they can register their teams. Right. That's it for me. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Okay, we had our legislative report. Again, we announced that we'd met in executive session for item 11. Item 12, is there any old business? Any old business anyone wants to discuss or something that you missed up? Okay. Take that as a no. And any new business? And I'll take that as a no as well. Public participation, comments not limited to the agenda. Karen and anyone, I guess not. No one stopped in? Okay. All right. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, October 15th. And a reminder that we, again, at 5:30 that day, we have our art. And I would encourage everyone to kind of get here early. It's, and now that I know we're going to be seeing some new things, I'm waiting for that, I've been looking at these same old ones for a long time now. I want to see some of these ones you've got hidden away.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, our next meeting Tuesday, October 15th with the art exhibit at 5:30. And with that, and no other business, could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So Jackson, second?
Second.